Hi, welcome to my homework video about Unix system administration. First, let us try to understand how to configure a network interface. I'm typing my uname to show the operating system and the uname-m to show the architecture. This is my current assigned IP address 192.168.1.62 given by my router. I can see this with the IP config or with IP space A command like here. So when we hit out the IPA, we also get the MAC addresses and the entire interface details. To turn off one of these interfaces, we can simply type in IP link, the interface name, and down. I think I've made a small syntax error. Yeah, we have to type in IP link set interface name and then to down. We can see that the loopback interface is now set to down, and later we can set it back up again. There are also a lot of other network managers like WICD, IW, and SENI. We can use any of them, but ifconfig usually comes pre-installed on a lot of Linux distributions. Now let us use ifconfig to try and change the MTU value, and also let us try to set up a few subnet masks. We can look at the syntax here. It is ifconfig space the interface name, then netmask, and the subnet mask itself. So we can also set ifconfig and the adapter and promiscuous. Promiscuous mode is where the interface will keep on listening to every packet it can. Creating a semicolon and 1 will create a small alias address for our interface. We can also successfully ping these. We can check that here. Now let us go and install traceroute. I'm trying to traceroute. Yeah, I'm trying to trace out the new alias address that I've created. We can observe that it is showing it in my own device because it did not go outside anywhere. It is the same device. We can also use the ifconfig command to set out MAC addresses. The syntax is this. Let us try to give out a MAC address right now. Okay, before putting out a MAC address, we should always set down the interface, and then we can set the MAC address. Let us do that. I think there is an error with the type of MAC address I chose. Let us give a different kind of address with not a lot of numbers. There might have been a few MAC addressing rules. Yes, that worked. Let us go and check that. Yep, typing ifconfig, we can observe that the MAC address has been changed. After that, this is one of my favorite tools. It is called Ethernet tool. We can use this to observe statistics and configure our network adapters. For example, here, if I type in Ethernet tool -I, it gives a lot of information and driver details about my network adapter. In my case, my network adapter doesn't support statistics, so it is not showing anything. So it's staying statistic support as no. So let us go and configure the duplexing. So this I should give the Ethernet name, and then I can turn the duplex into half duplex. We can also configure the speed from 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps in the same syntax. Now let us go to the second question of configuring a virtual interface. A virtual interface will use the same physical interface of yours, but instead it will be assigned its own IP address and it will be completely virtual. For that, let me mod probe dummy, which will help me in creating these virtual network interfaces. And we can use the IP link command to go and assign IP addresses and create the network interface. So I am creating something called Ethernet 99 with the type specified as dummy. So giving ifconfig shows that Ethernet 99 has been listed out there, and I am turning it on. After I turn it on, I can add a subnet mask to it. Looks like I made a small syntax error in the Ethernet adapter. Yeah, corrected my syntax. Giving ifconfig again, and there you go, the subnet mask has been changed for the virtual interface. Yeah, now let me try and delete the IP address that is already showing up here. I need to specify the device that the Ethernet specifically. It is asking to clearly specify the wildcard to delete perfectly, but it is not always required, but it is good practice to use it all the time. Yep, I need to use the IP link delete Ethernet command, and now I can completely delete the virtual interface and armoring the dummy. Now, if I go ahead and click on iConfig, it is only showing my. Now, let us move on into the third question of how to assign multiple IP addresses to the same network interface. We can do this by using the same IP address command. So first, let us see all the IP addresses associated with Ethernet 0. Now I will go ahead and add an IP address to the same interface. I um, I think I've made a mistake. Yeah, I forgot to specify the device name. So we always have to specify the interface name to assign the IP address. In the same way that I've assigned it, I can also delete it. The syntax is also very similar, and it asks me to specify the wildcard. That is it. We have successfully assigned and deleted IPs to same network interface. Now let us go into the next question on changing the DNS host through etc host file and the resolve configs file. First, let me go and open my etc host file. These are my current hosts listed out. I can simply type any address here, and with it I can give out a domain name. Here I am giving my router IP address as akhilesh.com. Pinging akhilesh.com is automatically pinging the IP that I've given there, which means we have successfully changed the host. And let me also try and open it through the browser. I'll go and give it my the domain that I've given. I'll type out akhilesh.com. So it opened my SFR router admin page, so which means it has perfectly worked. But this is not a fully correct one because this will change after the reboot. The changing in the resolve.config is much more permanent, but it also requires a completely its own package. So let us go ahead and install that resolve package here. Let me open the resolve config file in the meantime. So currently the name server is my default gateway router. I'll install the resolve config package. Now I will go and open the file that I'm looking for within the resolve.conf folder. This folder didn't exist earlier. And through the resolve.conf.head or tail, let me nano it. Here, if I type in my address, or whatever the name servers that will be given, those will be the permanent ones, as in even it'll avoid the regular default gateway addresses and loopback addresses. even after a reboot. This will be permanently saved here. But for it to take effect, I have to restart the service. So I'm going ahead and do that. So let me check the file once again. This doesn't seem to be the correct one. Yeah, so the name servers have been successfully added. Those will be my actual name servers before my gateway. Now let us move on to the next question, which is preventing a network manager from changing a configured static IP address. So first, let us check if network manager is dealing with our interfaces. So if it says unmanaged, then only it means that it isn't dealing with those interfaces. So to prevent NMCLI from handling my interfaces, I can go to the etc network interfaces file, and then I can type in the following to assign a static IP address for my interface. I pulled out this from the man page of the interfaces file online. So this is the syntax, and I have to type out the address that I'm willing to save for it and give out a subnet mask if possible. We can also specify a lot of other details here, but I am stopping with this. So once I put out IP-A again, it isn't saved because I did not restart the network manager. I'll go ahead and try to restart it. Or reload it. That Yeah, I will turn off my interface and then try to turn it back up again, or flush it. So now all the addresses are flushed. I'll wait for it to gain new addresses. Sometimes restart would simply work. Let me simply reboot my virtual machine and go ahead and see what new address the interface has gained for itself. I'll open the terminal again. There you go. It has successfully taken the address I've given, and when I click NMCLI devices status again, it is showing as unmanaged. We can also use the NMCLI dev managed status, and we can set that to no. If we set that to no, it can simply change to unmanaged. But we still had the goal of configuring the static IP address ourselves, which is why we went and edited it in that file. Now let us move on to the next question on observing an NS lookup when pinging local host addresses. So for this, when I type ns lookup hyphen server, for me it is giving the same name servers that I configured earlier. But the goal of the question was to change it to 8.8.8. So let us change it to 8.8.8 here. And then I'll put ns lookup server again. We have to restart the resolve conf service. Yeah. Once I'm okay, instead of instead of using the systemctl, I think I use sudo here. Correct. Once I restart it and then go and try to ns lookup the server again, now I'll be able to see that the DNSs have been changed. Let me move on to the next question on how to edit the routing tables and provide a gateway for specific destinations. Yeah, let me first type out IP route to check the routes that are existing. It has my default gateway address, and then I'll try and add a route. The syntax is the destination IP and then the gateway. So which means every time something tries to go to the destination, it will use that gateway. For example, I've given 1.40 as destination and given the gateway as 1.2. The 1.2 device does not exist in my network, which is why it never even left the host device. So let me go and scan my network here and try to give out a different gateway of the devices which is already connected. So I have 1.64, 1.67, and I have 1.62 for the machine I'm using now. So yeah, if the destination is 111, go through .64. I think .64 doesn't exist either. Did not leave anywhere. Neither is 1.2. So even if I do give out an address, it has to be able to accept packets and be capable of routing, so which is why it won't work. But that is how you add routings. And we can also delete it in the exact same way by giving the same command and just removing the add and putting out delete in there. That is it. This is how you can configure IP routes. Now let's move on to the next question on testing out a few popular Linux commands like host, DNS, and etc. First, let me start with host and open its man page. So host, NSLOOKUP, and dig are slightly similar to each other. So let me go ahead and punch and yeah, when I give out the domain address, it is giving me the name. So if I give it as -4, it will only use IPv4 protocol to make the query. And if it is -6, it uses IPv6, but my router isn't configured in IPv6, so it isn't supporting. So if I give out host-all and give out an IP, it will give the details about it. And if I give out details in my local address, and if I give out universal addresses, it is saying that they are not found. If I give out a particular IP, it is called as reverse lookup, and it is giving me the name of it, as in where it is pointed and everything. Uh, Again, if I try with IPv6, it isn't working. So when I type out txt, it will give out the txt records of particular site. Google doesn't seem to be giving out universally, but Twitter did. Yeah, from host, let us move on to a new command right now. Let let us go with NSLOOKUP. I'm opening the man page of NSLOOKUP here. It is quite similar to other DNS querying thing. NSLOOKUP in google.com will give me its server and its address, but look how the answers are non-authoritative. And if I give out the host of someone, it will give me the host details of that particular server. I think I typed out a mistake there. NSLOOKUPing and giving out the website will give the authoritative non-authoritative answers again. So if I give type ns, it will give me the name servers. These name servers you can configure in your domain registrar to go to a particular website. After that, let me give out the SOA, which will give me the mail addresses, the retry timings and expiry and everything. If I give out MX and the domain, it will give me the MX records, which is the mail exchange servers. Some websites can be using that as a hidden service, but Google is giving it out. And if I specify timeout as 200, it will wait for 200 seconds before the response from server is occurring. I will try and find out something which won't respond with me for 200 seconds, but it doesn't seem to be, there doesn't seem to be any server which takes 200 seconds. Okay, let us move on to the next command. The next command is dig. It is also another DNS lookup utility, and giving out the IP address as given details again. And if I give the dig ns as Akhilesh Mandi, and if I specify plus trace, it will give put out a trace route from multiple servers, and it will give me details regarding that. Again, if I specify mx and short, it will give me the highest mail exchange servers for that domain. I'm just using the man page to type out and try out these commands here. From dig, let us move on to a different command now. Traceroute is one of the most used commands out there. It will allow you to understand every device which is being touched before reaching to your destination. If you specify -4, it will only use IPv4 requests. If you specify -6, it will only use IPv6 requests. Again, my network doesn't seem to be supporting IPv6 at the moment. My router isn't configured as such. Then if I specify I, it will choose a particular interface to do the trace routing. I can specify whichever interface is connected to mine. Specifying -p will choose a particular port. Looks like apart from the devices very close to me, devices outside don't have their port 25 open, which is why there is no connections after that. Now let's move forward. Now let us understand the sh command. It just invokes the shell. So which means we can just write our script here, and it also gives you syntax errors if there are any. After if I supposed to type do, then it will immediately exit out of it and say that it was expecting a then over there. Yeah, like the although this isn't a directly great example of it, this is how the you can invoke a shell inside your terminal and basically type out whatever your scripting thing is. Now let us move on to the last question, which is using nmcli to configure a static address. So I'm opening the connective things on nmcli. I understood that there is wired connection 1, and I'll give out options to modify the wired connection 1. I can give out the IP address right there itself. So it did not seem to have changed. So let me restart it. And again, setting the interface down and back up again. So the IP address has been assigned to it, but there are also a few other IPs which are already added. There is also another method to do this. We can simply say nmcli device modify. Here we can specify the interface name instead of specifying the name of the connection, and it would also work in a similar way. Let us go ahead to the final question and try to use NMCLI to configure and use its commands. Uh, NMCLI con will give us the connection statuses, and NMCLI device status will give all the devices and its status. The con command will list out it based on the name, while dev lists out based on the device name. We can modify it based on either of them. So let me try to modify something with the connection name here. I'm trying to change the DHCP host name of this particular interface. Yeah, I can also change the IPv4 method to automatic for a particular connection. Hitting connection.autoconnect will make sure that every time the device boots up, the device will automatically connect to the particular interface based connection. And I can change the connection ID here. It is changed from wired connection 1 to ETH0. I think there will be a confusion between the device name and the regular name. So I will go ahead and change it to something else. I changed it to Ethernet. Oh, again, now I have a type and name clashing. Yeah, I can reload it, which means it will reload this particular connection.